All right. Welcome everyone to tonight's Ask the Expert. My name is Tamara. I'm so excited. Oh, you guys are just pouring in today. You guys are excited about Opportunity Zone. Once again, my name is Tamara. Most of you already know me, but if not, I am the manager of Literature Academy. And tonight I am so excited to have the Charm City buyers, Khalil and Kyara, with me today. They are going to talk about Opportunity Zone 101. So before I even go forward, I know you guys can't see them yet, so I just want them to say hello so we can get the cameras on them.
Yes. Hi. How are you guys doing?
How is everybody?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful couple here. So tonight we're talking about Opportunity Zone 101 because many of you have been asking about this. And you know, we keep our ears close to the ground. We were in a Facebook group and we noticed a few people have asked about this. And Kendra Barnes, you all are familiar with Kendra Barnes. She talks about real estate and how to get your down payments together and everything. So she recommended the Charm City buyers as the two people to talk about Opportunity Zones 101. So I'm seeing your comments come in. Come on into the room. If you're new, let me know. If you're an OG, let me know. Tell me where you guys are from. And we're going to go ahead and get started soon. So, wow. Okay. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear and see us clearly. And then we'll go ahead and get this started. All right, I got my go. All right, so I just want to introduce Kyara and Khalil to you guys. I'll introduce them individually. So Kyara, she has a passion for real estate that runs back to childhood, y'all. So from a small rural town in Pennsylvania, she has seen firsthand how real estate plays a vital role in a community. And she jumped headfirst into real estate just 1 year after college. So she's been hooked ever since. And with now 20 units and managing the development of a block, y'all, a block in Baltimore, on the block, her passion lies with mentoring and coaching aspiring investors to build generational wealth for themselves and their families. And then we have Khalil, who made his first real estate investment in 2012, just months after he relocated to a new state. So I mean, you don't have to be somewhere long in order to get this process going. The success in managing all aspects of the $110,000 rehab placed him on the path to becoming a successful real estate investor through hard work and focus. He's just been really instrumental in consistently growing his portfolio. So his goal is really to continue challenging himself to grow and learn these new things. And he runs a commercial development aspect of the Charm City Buyers Empire. And his focus is on emerging new market strategies. So he's amazing. They both are. So I just want to welcome you both, to Literature Academy today. Our members are really excited to have you. So welcome.
Yes, thank you for having us. We're so excited to talk to you guys and talk about opportunity zones. We're so big on making sure that as we come across and learn and get exposed to new things, that we're sharing those opportunities. And opportunity zones is one of those things that we've been super passionate about, kind of screaming from the rooftops so people understand what it really is, what it's really about, and how to best position themselves for success.
Absolutely. There's so many misconceptions about the program, how it works, and tons of different questions, largely because it's a new program and they haven't quite fully defined every single aspect of it. But as much as we know, we are so happy to share with you all today.
Yay! So we have a lot of people from Baltimore actually in the
Hey, Baltimore, stand up.
Yep.
Represent. So thank you all for kind of repping your cities, telling us where you guys are from. Shout out to South Carolina folks. I'm in South Carolina as of now. I move around a lot. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about just where the wave is coming from, where the hype is coming from, and why is this such a hot topic right now?
Yeah, so to get started, it's really the result of billions of dollars of unrealized gains just sitting, whether that's in property or in stocks and bonds, but money that isn't being used to create schools, used to develop properties, used to improve infrastructure. It's money that is not being used as well as it could be used. So the federal government decided to figure out a way to put that money to work.
Yeah, so this whole program is really to get those, when we talk about like the 1%, right? And these people that have all of this cash, to get them to pull their money out of the stock market, pull their money out of real estate, and then invest in these areas that they now call opportunity zones. And so they're trying to push the redevelopment and the development of these kind of historically overlooked neighborhoods and areas. And that's why I think a lot of people are so passionate and excited about the program. It's one, right? what happens to these areas that have been overlooked. And, I've lived here, my grandparents lived here and all of that. Now it's an opportunity zone. What does that mean? And two, all the folks that have the money, there's a lot of huge incentives for them to really cash out and do so in a huge way. And so it's kind of it's getting all this buzz and everyone's talking because it's really hitting everyone, right? And no matter where you are on the financial spectrum, there's a reason for you to be thinking about and talking about opportunity zones. And I think that's why it's kind of gone viral and it's posted everywhere. And, T.I. and Charlemagne were in Jersey a few weeks ago for a panel.
I heard about that. That was a big deal.
So it's definitely a conversation. You think about Nipsey Hussle and everything that he was doing was directly related to opportunity zones and taking advantage of the program. So there's a buzz, and it's because it's really the first time the government has done something like this. And because of social media, everyone can find out about it. Everyone can learn and be exposed to it versus, you have to be at the boardroom table to understand what's really going on.
Yeah, the last time something like this happened was probably the early 2000s with new market tax credits, if anybody's familiar with that. But in the age of social media where information is plentiful and easily accessible, it's a game changer at this point. And what's been happening is that for the past, let's call it 10 years, we've been in a growth economy. So things have been getting better and better. Stock prices have been going up and people are just sitting there waiting and watching. And if I'm a wealthy individual who has money in stocks, I'm not going to sell my stocks and realize my gains if year after year, the value of it continues to increase, especially if I don't have to live on it. And that's where this program is looking to have individuals realize those capital gains, put them into low income census tracts to really develop and spur some economic development.
Yeah. And at the same time, with like those folks who have all this money, right, that they're pulling out of the stock market and all of that, because there's so many people interested in learning, there's ways for people who may not have millions of dollars in the stock market or tons of money in property to still take advantage. And so we want to make sure that, again, everyone kind of gets a seat at the table to take advantage of the program, because even if you don't have all this money, if you are investing in these neighborhoods, if you are smart about what the program is and what it's all about, you can position yourself to really win over the next however many years the program's still enacted. So it's kind of this double-edged piece. And so we try to bridge the gap between those who have all this stock money and everything to those who can really add value in their communities and add value in these opportunity zones so that they can also build wealth and do all of these things that, the 1% are pretty darn good at.
Right. So let me ask you this. So say I am brand new to this. I just heard about this on the news yesterday, or I just saw T.I. on Instagram and I'm hearing this conversation and I hear that this program. Where would you recommend for someone to begin their research outside of Literature Academy, of course?
Of course. So I think, obviously, right, we always talk about doing your Googles, right? You can do your Googles and you can find some information. There's a ton of articles out there that talk about, and I know Chloe will probably go through this kind of a little bit of background on what the program actually is, but you can do your Googles and find some really great articles that give you an overview and start to just get used to some of the conversation around, what are the opportunity zones, right? There are opportunity zones all over the country in every city, right? Each governor had to choose opportunity zone areas in every state across the country, and also in Puerto Rico. And so, number one, that there's opportunity zones all over the place. Number two, you start to understand what some of the value propositions are of the opportunity zone program when you're reading about it online. And that has a lot to do with taxes and tax savings and saving on your capital gains. And then three, you talk a little bit about, you'll hear a little bit about opportunity zone businesses and how different properties and businesses in these areas designated as opportunity zones have the opportunity to grow and have tax advantages and do some really cool things with how they're able to grow. Because really one of the biggest aspects of building wealth and generational wealth and all of like these key terms that we like to talk about and spew all the time is keeping that money. And a lot of that has to do with how you position yourself from a tax perspective. And so that is kind of one of the baseline advantages of the Opportunity Zone program is the advantages from a tax perspective. But so you can learn some stuff online, but it gets kind of muddled. And so Chloe actually has read like all the actual law documents to understand really what the program is and what it's really all about.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, and it's a lot going on. And it's one of those things where less than a year ago, you had to be careful with what resources you looked at. Maps were incorrect and the information was wrong. Some people thought it was a grant program, and there were articles posted about it. It's getting more clear now, but it's still not quite where it needs to be. There's some more regulations that are planning to come out. But the nuts and bolts of it, there are over 8,600 opportunity zones throughout the U.S., every state, and territories, including Puerto Rico, British Islands, etc. Baltimore, for example, has 149 opportunity zones. We really need more, but but the reality is that every governor had to designate 25% of what's called a low-income census tract as an opportunity zone. So not all 100%, but only a quarter of them. And each governor, we'll go into a little bit of history here. So it started with the Tax Cuts and the Jobs Act in December of 2017, where this regulation started, and all of a sudden this quick proposal was slid into the act that defined what opportunity zones are and defined the mechanisms through which opportunity zones could work and function. It wasn't fully defined. It was only a 5-page document, and for something this large, obviously you need a lot more than just 5 pages. So every governor worked with individual cities and municipalities. And by March of 2018, they had to determine which 25% of their low-income census tracts were then designated as opportunity zones. What is a low-income census tract? Let's start there. So a low-income census tract is basically an area where without kind of getting into the weeds and the nuts and bolts of it, the average median income is low. The poverty rates are high. The investment is not seen. It's one of those typical areas, whether it's rural or in a city, where government officials have been not taking care of it as well as they should. Okay, so 25% of its low income census tract. So by April and May, finally, every governor had decided which ones would be considered opportunity zones, and the first few maps started to come out. These are where your opportunity zones are in your state. This is what you need to know about opportunity zones. Over the summer, there were different conferences and announcements being made. For example, PNC announced that they were creating an opportunity fund, $486 million. They plan to sell stock and realize those capital gains and then put it into an opportunity fund so that it could be invested into different areas. And a few other people made large announcements. I remember seeing something go viral about Anthony Scaramucci, $3 billion opportunity fund, and all this other type of stuff. But still, at that time, nobody knew what they were. Right. What is going on? What are these opportunity funds? There's so much misinformation that people didn't really want to take them seriously at that point. But as the months went on, further definitions were made. In October, some regulations were defined to help provide some guidance. Some draft documents were created. There was a process to create an opportunity fund. There were systems in place, but as things are moving forward, we're defining it a little bit more.
Awesome. Yeah, and we need to, because like you said, we can do all of the Google searching, but sometimes you don't know exactly what's concrete. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit? So if I'm doing a Google search, do I want to stick to things that are government related or certain different articles? What would you recommend are those articles that I should exactly trust?
Yeah, so that's hard because I don't know if you heard, but sometimes right now in the government, sometimes it's the information you get can be a little bit muddled, right? And so it's hard these days to really define and get into what is the good source. So something that is from the government will probably be a safe place to go, but it might not have all of the details, or it might kind of be harder to understand. And then when you get into articles, sometimes it gets a little hard because they breeze over some really important information where it's easy to get confused, which is why a lot of people thought that it was a grant program. Like, where do I sign up to get money from this Opportunity Zone fund? And that's not exactly how it works. So I would be really, really thoughtful about your resources. I know Wells Fargo actually has a really great article that they created to define opportunity zones and the fund and how all of that works. I really like what they did with that article. Maybe I'll share it with you after this.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be very thoughtful about where you go. If you see something consistently, right, that might be a good place to start. But the problem is, and this is why it's so weird, and this is why we had to spend the time actually reading all of the government documents, is because since it was kind of dripped, the information was kind of dripped over like 18 months. And so they gave us like the 5 pages at first, and then in last October, they came out with more information. This past February, they gave a little bit more. And so if you're reading something that's kind of older, it might be a little outdated. So you want to just make sure that you're staying up to date. And we try to keep people up to date as things change and move forward and become more defined. But they kind of created the program on more of like a concept and then build the team later. And so even, I don't think they even staffed the Opportunity Zone office until like a few months ago. And they've been talking about it for a little over a year. So if you feel like you're not quite 100% sure yet, like don't feel like it's just you. It's just that there's a lot of the information that's out there has been a little bit muddled until you actually read the regulations, read the documents, and get into what's really happening.
Okay, so this kind of reminds me of the whole like Bitcoin phase where they were fairly new. Everyone was jumping on it and we kind of didn't know where it was, but this seems like it could be a little more concrete. So just doing a lot of research. So I do have some questions on the opposite end as far as people who live in these opportunity zones, these communities. How do they prepare for this like investment wave that's going to come?
Absolutely. $6 trillion are estimated in unrealized gains, and that money is going to come to opportunity zones from everywhere. So how do you prepare? You find out whether or not you live in or near an opportunity zone. And that's the really the best way. That way, when money starts to come into your area, you can position yourself to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I would definitely say make sure you understand where the opportunity zones are in your area for sure. Be part of your community. And I mean that as like get involved in your community associations and all of those different boards and organizations where developers, people that are going to come in and do big things, they have to go usually through a community association. So if you're on the board, you're a member, you're at least kind of keeping your ears to the street, you can hear and find out what's going or what's coming before it actually does. So in most development, we do a lot of development work and kind of larger projects. A lot of times those are years in the making. And you start with your community association, having conversations with them, city council, local government boards, to be able to get approvals to do, the new grocery store, or put in a new Walmart, or, those big things, the Starbucks that everyone likes to talk about that comes sneaking into a lot of these neighborhoods. And so those start in these community association type of places. And so if you have a seat at that table, you're going to know what's coming, right? So that's one, is to get involved. Another thing that I think is really important is that you pay attention, you see what's happening, bike lanes, new trees being planted in neighborhoods that weren't quite, being invested in at that level, and making sure that as things are changing, or even you're coming, you walk past the same house all the time and it's vacant, you're like, wow, someone should do something with it. Figure out how you can be that person, right? Because I think what's really going to be important is that even if you aren't investing through an opportunity zone fund or what have you, if you have ownership in these areas, as other investors and developers come in and drive the real estate prices up, you have the opportunity to ride that wave, right? We like to say a rising tide raises all ships. And so if you have ownership, it puts you in a position to ride that wave and grow your wealth through ownership in real estate in the communities. And another piece that we really like to drive home too is just making sure that you're being smart when it comes to taxes, right? When property values increase, so do your taxes. And that's when we want to make sure we're checking on, our great aunts and our grandparents and people on fixed income in these areas where a rise in taxes really could be detrimental to their ability to stay in these neighborhoods. And so we talk a lot about different credits and ways that you can keep your taxes low and protect folks who have lived in these neighborhoods for a long time, so that, again, they're put in a position to ride the wave, right? We don't want, with Baltimore having 149 opportunity zones and being probably one of the poster childs for opportunity zones in the next few years, we want to make sure that we're not becoming the next Harlem, the next DC, the next, these areas where, people were really were forced to move because they could no longer afford to stay in these neighborhoods. And so if you have ownership, you are smart about protecting yourself from a financial position with taxes and things like that, you're able to just ride that wave, right? This should be a wealth builder for our communities and for these folks from these opportunity zone communities, and not something that pushes us, that much further back.
Absolutely. One of the specific programs to help protect yourself is the homestead tax credit. Most states have it at this point. And what it does is it phases in an increase in your property taxes over a certain amount of time, 5 or 10 years. Instead of having your property taxes increase suddenly from one year to the next, it gives that person a chance to really phase it in, to earn more income slowly in order to make sure that they're not being displaced from different areas. The Opportunity Zone program is a strong program. It's a positive program. It's one that's intended to spur economic development. It's intended to rehab properties, but it's also intended to help businesses. So if you're planning on starting a business sometime soon, look at an opportunity zone as your home base, if you can, right? Or if you happen to be positioned well and you want to invest in a business, look at an opportunity zone business in order to park your funds. There are so many different ways to take advantage of this program. Even if you live near an opportunity zone, you may feel some of those residual impacts from that money coming into an adjacent tract. And your property value will certainly increase faster than a non-opportunity zone or a non-adjacent tract. So definitely take a look out. And there are so many different ways to take advantage of the program.
Perfect. So I do have a few questions that are coming in that are related to where we are right now. So I'm going to go ahead and ask those. So Jamil, hi Jamil. Welcome to tonight. Let me see. So I think you had 2 questions. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, so the question is, have you found a fund where you don't have to be a qualified investor or have certain liquid asset level to invest in the fund?
Yes, great question. So oftentimes when it comes to investing into funds or real estate or properties, you have to be what's called an accredited investor. And that means you've got a certain income level, you've got a certain amount of liquid cash in order to park into a property or a business. With the Opportunity Zone program, you do not have to be an accredited investor. All you have to do is realize capital gains. What capital gains are is money that you earn from selling something. Selling a stock or selling a piece of property are the 2 most common ways. But capital gains can be realized other places. What capital gains are not is money that you've saved from a salary or money that you were gifted by somebody. So as long as you have capital gains,
right?
Or 401k does not qualify as capital gains. As long as you have capital gains, you can certainly put that money into a fund, and then the fund invest in qualified opportunity zone businesses and qualified opportunity zone properties.
Okay, so that was a great question, Jamil. Thank you so much for asking that, because I'm pretty sure a couple of people were going to be thinking of that. So there are some questions of concern here. I just want to address this. You spoke to it a little bit, but the question is, how do opportunity zones contribute to gentrification?
So if you think about, there's gentrification has become this really, really bad word. And I'm not saying it's not, but in just straight definition perspective, it just means that the community is going to grow or develop or whatever in some way, shape, or form. So the Opportunity Zone program will do that, right? It's going to have these businesses, these funds are going to invest money into these communities to develop those areas. So gentrification by definition, will happen in areas that these opportunity zone funds are targeting. The way people use gentrification is really about displacement, right? And so what we try to do by talking about the program and what it is and what it's all about is also share how do you prevent displacement, right? You prevent displacement by having that seat at the table and knowing what's going on and keeping your ear to the street or whatever about what's coming, about making sure that people understand how to protect themselves from a tax perspective. And because when you think about a lot of these areas that had gentrification, and when you think of the word gentrification, it's because those taxes increased too quickly and people were no longer able to afford it. It's because rents got too damn high, right? Like, so people couldn't afford to stay in these areas any longer. And so there are different programs and ways to protect the folks who live and have lived in these areas forever. But it will absolutely develop these communities that are targeted. Maybe not every opportunity zone might not see $1 billion, right? But the ones that are targeted specifically, there will be changes in these areas. It's a lot of money. They're gonna bring businesses, they're gonna bring and redevelop property, and it's gonna drive up prices. And that is what gentrification is. But it's really important that we're sharing what the program is all about so people understand how to educate themselves and then protect themselves and position themselves to win and grow and build wealth during this period, rather than being pushed out and, put in a tougher position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you are on here right now and you are watching us and you are listening, you are taking some major steps to help prevent your own displacement. You're taking major steps for your friends and your family. Spread the word. Make sure that when it comes to finding information, you have the resources that you can share with people, and watch podcasts, go to conferences, check out webinars. Make sure that you are getting as informed as possible. Join community associations. That is so important. Right. Go to the meetings, show up, be there and be present so that you're not positioning your future generations for failure.
Thank you so much. I was just writing that down inside of the chat. So there were two things I wanted to mention. So one, join your community associations. And then you also talked about homestead tax credit. So those are two things that I'm going to list inside of the Academy. You also, just in case you're not in a position to take notes, you're on the road and you're listening in, we'll have that listed below inside of the Academy. I did have one more question come in that I'm gonna touch on before we jump right back into the lesson. But the question is, how do you actually invest in Opportunity Zone? Is it a fund you can invest in? Like, what is it?
What is it? Yeah. Right. It's a great question. And I think people get so confused by it. So there's two answers. So to invest in an Opportunity Zone fund and take advantage of the tax incentives of the Opportunity Zone programs, you invest capital gains into a Opportunity Zone fund, a fund specifically created as a result of the Opportunity Zone program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then but you can invest in opportunity zones. And this is what I think is really, people get confused about, or there's like this misconception. So absolutely, like if you want to save on your capital gains and have all the tax incentives, you have to have capital gains and you invest in an Opportunity Zone fund. But nobody's stopping you from buying the house next to your grandmother's house that happens to be in an Opportunity Zone area. So you can invest in opportunity zones because it's just a designated area, a designated community. You can invest in there all day long with whatever money you have, whether it's your cash or whether you're using, other people's money, someone else's cash, a bank, lenders, whatever, your rich auntie, right? Whatever, you can invest in opportunity zones. You do not have to work with a fund to invest in these areas. But if you have capital gains and you want to save on taxes, you want to invest in Opportunity Zone through the Opportunity Zone program, you would work with an Opportunity Zone fund.
Okay, so Natural Brown Beauty's question, I believe you just answered it, but she said, for clarification, if you sell a house, does that qualify as capital gain? Oh, can you hear me?
You came back now, I think.
So the question was, so for clarification, if you sell a house, that qualifies as capital gain. Does that qualify as capital gain?
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
right,
yes,
so
yes.
Selling a house qualifies as capital gain.
What is part of that is if you sell the house that you live in, there's some ways where it doesn't end up being capital gains if you've lived there for a certain amount of time. But if you bought an investment property specifically, and you sell an investment property, be it a rental, if you flip properties, when you sell those, your profits from that will be is considered capital gains. If you sell your personal home and you've lived in it for I think it's 3 out of the last 5 years, you get forgiven of a lot of the capital gains because it's a way to not charge homeowners capital gains for selling their house. But most people who have capital gains have it in a property, and the way you realize that is through selling that property. But that's a really great question, because there's a lot of, if you want to invest in an opportunity zone fund, you want to figure out where your capital gains are. So property is definitely one of those places where capital gains is parked.
Yeah. So for us, for example, with our block, it's all located in an opportunity zone. Now that doesn't impact whether or not we move forward with it, but once we sell and we realize those gains, our business is also located in a separate opportunity zone. Right. So we will create an opportunity fund. We'll take the money from our gains. We'll put it back into our business, and we won't have to pay our capital gains taxes based on the laws and the regulations. So it's a way to play financial defense that allows us to continue putting money into our business for growth and in other properties. Absolutely.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit more? Wait, first, can you hear me?
Yes.
Which is okay, perfect. How do you suggest people position their businesses for opportunity zone investments?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to do it is to put your business into an opportunity zone. That's the number one way. And then there are organizations, governmental organizations that can help you find dollars to invest into your business. And depending on what their appetite is and all those different types of things, you can certainly find investment dollars to help your business grow. But putting your business into an opportunity zone is one of the best ways to do it. And if you want to take it one step further, forming an opportunity fund, a qualified opportunity fund, QOF, is not a difficult task. An LLC can do it, partnership, a corporation can do it. It's very few documents at this point. Now they're still all in draft form, but it's just a couple of pages that you file with your tax return, and you've got a qualified opportunity fund.
And I think it's also important to note, so the table stakes to get opportunity zone fund money is to be in an opportunity zone as a business. But beyond that, when you're thinking about raising capital as a business, you're going to be required, or you're going to want to have a business plan. You're going to want to have all of those kind of standard requirements when you're really working with someone and making a pitch for money. So it's definitely, it's a fund. So it'd be just like raising money. A lot of times, unless you are friends with someone who's in real estate who creates a fund, and you guys can work it out and turn the opportunity zone fund opportunity into another way of getting access to OPM, that's awesome too. But yeah, you're going to want to probably be structured and be prepared to take on money just like you would anyone else's dollars.
All right, so they are really pouring in with the questions right now. So
Good.
We're in a good place. I'm going to go ahead and jump in right now. And this is all still focused on, what's considered an investment. So the question number one was, is there a minimum? So do you need to start at a minimum, investment fee, or what's the minimum for investing?
Nope, there's no minimum. There's no minimum dollar amount. It's just capital gains that you put into a qualified opportunity fund. Now, different funds may have specific criteria and say we're only accepting $5,000 in investments or something. But in terms of the program itself, you can invest $1 of capital gains into an opportunity fund.
That just might not necessarily make sense.
Yeah, it might not. The juice might not be worth the squeeze, as they say.
So is there like one company or fund, or is there a specific title that you're looking for outside of Opportunity Zone? Because it's so new, it's just, where do you even go to invest?
Man, so the resources are still being formed. Okay. So the state of Maryland, for example, and let me just back up a little bit. The Opportunity Zone program, it's a federal program. Okay, so it's a U.S. program. Now, states are starting to create their own state-specific opportunity zone program, as we saw with the new market tax credits and other programs, because different states want to be as competitive as possible, right? If I'm the state of Maryland and I know the state of Virginia and the state of Pennsylvania all want to do this opportunity zone stuff, and I want to attract a large corporation to come and dump a lot of money into my state, I'm going to create additional incentive programs and say, hey, instead of a 10% reduction in your tax basis, I'll give a 15%, and different types of programs to help out. So the state of Maryland has a database, and a few other states do too, where they are compiling information on different investors, on different business opportunities, on different property opportunities, both commercial and residential. And really putting all of that information into a central database so that individuals have it and can work with it.
Perfect. So the next question is, if you are a resident landlord selling one's home, are those considered capital gains as well?
As a landlord, if you sell your rental property and there's a profit attached to that, right? You bought the house for $100,000, you're selling it for $200,000, then you're going to have capital gains as a result of selling that property.
But it sounds like this person may be house hacking. Resident landlord.
Yeah, you guys have Kendra on here all the time. If you're house hacking, I'm sure she talks about house hacking. If you're house hacking, it can be a little bit trickier because you actually live in the home. So again, if you've lived in the house for 3 of the last 5 years, there's already some forgiveness around capital gains. You don't have to pay capital gains as a result of selling that house. And so you may actually need to consult a CPA or someone like that to really dive into your personal situation to see if selling that house specifically would then qualify for capital gains in the Opportunity Zone program.
That's a really good point. And I'm going to segue here for just a second. I do it all the time. We are not attorneys. Neither of us are certified public accountants, CPAs. So we're just working on the knowledge that we've gained, the knowledge that we're implementing into our own businesses, and sharing as much information as possible.
We usually give that caveat earlier on.
Well, we got it in there. That's important. So, yeah, she said yes, it was house hacking. So answered her question there.
Kudos to you for house hacking.
Yeah. So, and then Jamaica was wondering, so if you don't have capital gains, then really the only way to benefit is to place your business there. That's the other way.
No, that's not the only way.
Yeah, you can place your business there, or you just buy property. Like you still have tons of opportunity in just buying property in general, right? We're big on real estate and investing in real estate and building wealth through real estate. But as someone, if you don't have capital gains, you can still buy in opportunity zone areas, and then you then benefit residually or indirectly from the Opportunity Zone program, because you have all these big guys with tons of money investing next door that then drive your property values up. So part of investing in real estate isn't just, you have the cash flow if you're working with rentals and, you have someone else paying down your mortgage. And there's also what's called appreciation. That's a really big point of why you invest in real estate. And that's when your property value increases. So if you are smart on the Opportunity Zone program, you know where they are, you know what's coming because you have your ears to the street, like we keep talking about. You invest in these areas outside of an Opportunity Zone fund, and then you then have the opportunity to really drive your appreciation up and taking advantage of the fact that these other folks are investing with Opportunity Zone funds. So there's ways outside of the program to benefit indirectly. So we want like both sides of the table to understand what's going on so everyone can win versus watching folks come into these communities and win and kind of go back to their chateaus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't drive that point home enough. It's so important to recognize that if you don't have capital gains, it's okay. You still need to get into the game because there are ways to win. If I'm looking at a qualified opportunity zone and a non-opportunity zone, and I'm looking to purchase a rental property, I should target an opportunity zone as my purchase. Because as Kyara said, money from other investors are likely going to come into the opportunity zone as opposed to the non-opportunity zone. And my property is going to appreciate more than if I had purchased it in a non-opportunity zone, or my primary house is going to appreciate more, or there's so many different residual and indirect impacts that everybody can literally get into the game. That's just on the offensive side. If you're playing financial defense, I love the financial offense, financial defense thing. If you're playing financial defense, then you're going to want to tell your friends. You're going to want to tell your family members, look, do you live in an opportunity zone? Yes or no? If yes, or if you live near one, then you need to make sure that you're doing research to learn about a renter's tax credit or a homestead tax credit or all of these different programs that help you from getting displaced from your home or your mother's home or your grandmother's home or however many generations your family has owned it.
Yeah, I think when we first started this conversation, that's what a lot of our viewers tonight were talking about: your aunts, your uncles, your grandmothers, and making sure that they're prepared for it. So thank you, S. Ellis. I saw that you dropped the link for the National Council State Housing Association. She was saying that that's a good location to look to kind of get some information as well.
Good.
But more importantly, really going to those to the homeowners associations and your city councils is definitely the best route to go, as suggested. All right, we have a few more questions dropping in. We have some specific. These are very specific. I'm going to ask this one because it's interesting.
Sure.
As if one is selling one's ETFs and using those capital gains to invest in, let's say, a new funeral home in an opportunity zone, how might this benefit me in the long run?
It's her ETF, so it's her money.
Let's see. If you can answer that, let me know if that's your own money.
Yeah, I'm just okay. So let's assume that's her money, right? So okay, so go through. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the tax benefits.
Sure. So some nuts and bolts about the Opportunity Zone program. Once you realize gains, right? Typically, in a non-opportunity zone world, the moment you realize those gains, whether it's selling a property or selling ETFs, you have to pay capital gains taxes on it. And those taxes are somewhere between 15 and 35% based on your tax bracket. I like to play with large numbers because I like to think and have others think in terms of large numbers. We're not talking about $10,000. Let's play with $1 million, right? Let's say we've got $1 million in capital gains. We've sold some Google stock or ETFs, and we got $1 million. Off break, you're going to pay $150,000 to $350,000 in capital gains taxes in a non-opportunity zone world. If you put that money, that $1 million gains, into a qualified opportunity fund, then you defer your taxes, which means you don't have to pay taxes on that money right now, right? So in the very beginning, you're already ahead of the game, right? If you keep that money into a qualified opportunity fund for 5 years, then you only pay taxes on 90% of that money. Right, so you're only paying taxes on $900,000 as opposed to paying taxes on the full $1 million. If you keep it in that qualified opportunity fund for 2 more years, so 7 years total, then you're only paying taxes on 85% of that money, $850,000. If you keep that money into an opportunity fund for 10 or more years, then you don't pay capital gains taxes on that money or any appreciation that you've seen over the last 10 years. Wow. That's the power of the program. That's why it's getting so much attention. That's why Anthony Scaramucci announced a $3 billion fund, and PNC started the charge with a $486 million fund, because they see that if I create a fund for $3 billion, I don't have to pay capital gains taxes on the money that I'm realizing or on the appreciation of the asset. If I invest into an IT company with that $1 million in my ETFs, and now it's worth $10 million, I don't have to pay capital gains taxes on it. I mean, it's really huge. Now, there are some different caveats. There's a December 31st, 2026 event where you do have to pay taxes and a few other things. They're still working through the program as much as possible. Businesses aren't fully defined quite yet. Churning, which is buying and selling, still has a few questions to figure out, and we're keeping our eyes particularly close on that, because as we buy and sell property, as we flip it, we want to make sure that it doesn't trigger a capital gains tax event on the money that we've invested or on the earnings. So we're keeping our eyes close to that. But you sell your ETFs and you put it into a funeral home that's located in a qualified opportunity zone, and you do that through an opportunity fund, then your funeral home appreciates in value. You keep that money in there for 10 years. You don't have to pay any capital gains taxes.
Wow, that is eye-opening. Is there any indication of how long this program might last? Or
That's a great question.
That's a really good question. So as of now, the latest date that I've seen is 2047. And there's some reasons why. It's a 10-year program. And then they want to make sure that the capital gains that are invested during the last day of the 10-year program can still qualify. So there's another 10 years minus a day. And then there's still a small buffer at the end as well. So 2047 is the last day of the program the last year of the program that we've seen so far. Now, depending on the success of the program and amendments and different things, it can certainly extend further and beyond. Yeah, that's what we've seen so far.
Okay, so it sounds like you guys, we just have to keep reading and just stay on top of everything. I guess my next question for you all is, like, how are developers really taking advantage of the opportunity zones?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great opportunity to keep more of your money in your pocket for longer, right? So if you're able to defer those capital gains and create opportunity zone funds, you're able to then reuse that money more, right? And more of it. And so you're able to get a stronger return. So if I have that $1 million and I'm deferring, I put it into into an opportunity zone fund, don't have to pay that $150,000 to $350,000 in taxes. That's an extra $150,000 to $350,000 that I have to invest. So I'm able to continue to get a stronger return on more of my money more often, which is great. And for a lot of developers, it's getting access to more funds. So as these, the Anthony Scaramucci's and PNC and all these folks are building these funds, they're really looking to try to deploy it because they're spending a whole lot of money in only 10 years. And so they're looking for development projects that fit what their requirements are. And so people are pitching, there's conversations and a lot of boardroom talk about different projects that are coming. So there's a lot of things in the works. So as a developer, and what we're doing, we're having conversations about what goals we have, what development projects we have our eyes on that are in opportunity zones, and then identifying different funds and partner organizations that could then fund or help fund our development projects through the opportunity zone fund program.
Wow, this was like great information. Wait, someone just came in with the question because I just really wanted to talk about how everyone pretty much can benefit from this program. If you really sit back and you think about it. In some situations, you have to be a little strategic and start preparing for it. So especially for our elderly, I think that's where my heart is kind of leaning towards right now. I'm like, yo, call your grandma.
Right.
Get everything together. Jamil says, if you had an old 401k with your former employer, it may be beneficial to roll over the 401k money into a traditional self-directed IRA to sell stock and excess funds. He's not an attorney or a CPA. He wanted to.
That's right.
You guys nodding your head. Does that sound about?
Yeah, pulling it out of the 401k and putting it into self-directed will then kind of change some of the rules where when you sell those stocks, if you're using a self-directed fund and you're investing in stocks through a self-directed fund, when you sell that would more likely be capital gains. 401ks don't really do capital gains like that. There's some rules around it. So that is a potential opportunity. But again, you're going to want to talk to your accountant to help point you in the right direction.
The key point is it has to be capital gains.
It has to be capital gains.
So, if you can't borrow from your 401k or borrow from your traditional IRA, sounds like you'd have to sell it in order to realize capital gains. Capital gains is the indicator.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you guys know we are always looking for ways to help you further your education on the different topics that we come up with. So, I spoke with Kyara and Khalil, also known as the Charm City Buyers, and they actually have a course that will allow you to educate yourself a little more further than we discussed tonight. So can you guys kind of speak to that and what the special offer is for the Dream Builders?
Yes. So we wanted to, this is like the Opportunity Zone Fund is a lot, right? There's a lot of regulation. It's a lot of information. And so the Opportunity Zone 101 classes really goes through a lot of it in detail in a way that you can really understand and get kind of a framework of what the Opportunity Zone program is. And again, how to position yourself, whether you are going to invest directly into an Opportunity Zone fund because you have capital gains, or because you're going to invest in an opportunity zone, take advantage, rising tide raises all ships. And of course, we're looking out for grandma, and we'll talk more about the homestead tax credit and why that matters and why different programs like that are really, really important to protect folks who live in these opportunity zone areas. But even beyond that, we wanted to make sure that people are really getting put in a position where they can invest in these areas, right? And so we talk a lot about, beyond just opportunity zones, we also talk a lot about using other people's money in OPM. And we want to make sure that people are really educated on what OPM is, right? How do you use other people's money? How do you get access to funds outside of a bank, and work with folks to buy property without using your own cash, maybe not your own credit. And so what we wanted to do was not only share the Opportunity Zone 101 and all the information about opportunity zones, but also how you can use or get introduced to OPM in a way that you are positioned to invest in these opportunity zone areas, whether you have the cash and the credit or not. And so we put it all together for the ultimate opportunity bundle with the Opportunity Zone 101 class and an introduction to OPM because we are all about OPM. We're 20 rentals and the block. We've always worked outside of a bank. So we've worked with private lenders. We've worked with nonprofit lenders. We've done seller financing, subject to deals. We've done deals a million different ways, it feels like. And so we want to make sure that people understand that there are creative ways and alternative ways to get access to money and funding so that you can still invest. There's ways to invest without your own cash, without your own credit and all of that good stuff. And so we wanted to partner that with this opportunity zone information so that people are put in a position to win and grow alongside the Opportunity Zone Fund program.
Awesome. So you guys are pretty much just setting us up for success. And one thing I just love about the Literature Academy community is that anytime you ask for the information, we do our best to deliver it to you. And I couldn't have chosen two better people than Kyara and Khalil. So Candace, I see your comment. She said, you guys are brilliant business people. Thank you so much. You guys are outstanding. Andrea said, thank you for sharing this information. So yeah, the course does sound great, MJJ2107. So if you are interested in the course inside of the Academy and also in the Facebook group, you guys will see the link there. And they really wanted to make sure that everyone would be able to take advantage of this opportunity. So it is reasonably priced, and I would highly suggest for you to jump on it, educate yourself. It's only $66.15 until tomorrow. So if you guys go inside of the Academy, click on the link, you'll see all of the information there. And then if you want to share this with someone else too, for people who do not have access to this lesson, Kyara actually does a really great introduction video where she explains what's in that course and why you should take it. I think as many people need to know about this as possible. So of course, as always, we have our little after party in the Facebook group. So if there are any additional questions, Kyara and Khalil will be in there between today, tomorrow, throughout the week. They are now part of the Literature Academy family. Yeah. And if you guys want them to take this a little bit further, let us know specifically what you would like for them to talk about. We can always bring them back as well. They are open to that because they're amazing. So yeah, we're just getting a lot of thank yous, a lot of awesome information comments here. So please, when we're done, head over to the Facebook group and just let them know we appreciate them, because I can see your comments, but they can't. Thank you for your time today. Anything else you guys wanted to share? Any last words?
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're really excited about sharing the information and just exposing more people to the opportunity of the Opportunity Zone program, of course. And then, of course, always, if you guys want to, we'll be in the Facebook group and we'll love to interact, but you can also follow us we're mostly on Instagram at Charm City Buyers, everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you want to reach out to us that way, you can definitely do so.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, and I know it's going a little bit off topic, but the only other thing I would add is that when programs like this happen and come out, they always try to sneak them underneath the radar. So it formed around Christmas, December 2017. The first set of regulations came out around Halloween 2018. Literally on Valentine's Day 2018, 2019, there were conversations around it. July 4th coming up, there's going to be the final set of programs. We really want to make sure that we're paying attention to what's happening and get involved.
Yeah, and keep people updated. So as new things come out, we try to update, make sure everyone knows what's going on. So
awesome. Thank you so much for your time. So speaking of new things, I just wanted to announce to all of you that we've been talking about the Financial Freedom Plan for quite some time. And the Financial Freedom Plan is exclusive to Literature Academy, this ultimate course that we wanted to create to walk you through step by step how to achieve financial freedom. Tiffany's going to go live in a Facebook group to talk about it tomorrow. We'll be releasing the first module, and this is going to be our pilot. We're going to get as much information from you guys as possible for that first module in the lesson so that we can create the full course the way you actually want it to be. So I just wanted to share that information with you all, let you know that we'll send an email out tomorrow so you guys can join Tiffany during her Facebook Live. But otherwise, in the meantime, please jump on getting as much information as possible on opportunity zones, learning about your area, getting involved in your community so that you can know the specifics. And we'll see you in the Facebook group. So have a good evening, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
I'm always impressed to see people on a Sunday evening spending time.
Yes, ready for education. Start your week off right.
So good night, everyone. You have a great day, and we'll see you in the Facebook group.